I'd like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the Village Board on Monday, February 21st at 7 p.m. in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom, and also can be joined via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all village board members present except for Trustee Pieper, and Trustee Jan Miller is joining us via WebEx. At this time, I'll ask us all to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag, States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item is President's Report. I have nothing to report tonight, so we can go on to the next item, which is announcements of a forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports. We'll start with committee reports and committee chairs with Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room at 6 p.m. on March 1st, Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance will meet on March 21st in this room at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Myers.
Public Safety will, Mr. President, Public Safety will meet March 7th at 6 p.m. in this room.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to bring forward for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Trustee Jan Miller, do you have anything to bring forward for matters of interest? I think you're on mute.
Too many screens. Thank
There you
you. I would like to alert everyone that we're having our first 4th of July committee meeting, and that will be tomorrow, the 22nd of February at 6 p.m. in the Village Hall Boardroom, where you are now. And we will be transmitting by WebEx as well as in person. So we have reached out and asked for volunteers on Nextdoor, as well as I believe on our website. So we're looking forward to getting the Independence Day 4th of July event moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? If not, we could go to the next item, which is citizen input and public appearance on items not subject to a public hearing. There are no public hearings on tonight's agenda. So if there is anyone in our audience or joining us via WebEx that would like to participate in citizen input or public appearance, you're welcome to do so at this time. All I would ask is that you state your name and your address for the record, or make our moderator of the WebEx platform known that you would like to speak. Is there anyone wishing to come forward? All right, thank you. Then we can go on to consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda A through C.
I think I want to pull one.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Which one does?
No, I don't want to
Which
pull
one?
one. Never mind.
All right. Any discussion? No discussion. We'll do roll call vote, please.
Trustee Myers?
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Baum? Trustee Hudson?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Neidreiter?
Aye.
Trustee Pieper?
Aye.
President Walter?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business, starting with unfinished business item A, which is American Rescue Plan. We have a presentation on that tonight, and to do that for us, Matthew will be taking over.
So I just like to provide a brief update on the American Rescue Plan Act. Last time we met was in December. Since then, a few things have changed. So I just wanted to report back on kind of the updates we've gotten from the Treasury, report out on the stakeholder feedback and kind of the direction that we're kind of thinking of going with the plan. So just a brief update on the ARPA timeline. In March 2021, the Congress passed and the President signed the American Rescue Plan Act. Since then, the Treasury has released its interim report on how to use those funds. The village has received its first funds in June of 2021. In January, we provided a listening session for the community and stakeholder feedback by posting on our website, on social media, giving the residents the ability to contact you, me, or any village employee about how they'd like to see these funds spent. Since then, in February, the Treasury released their final rule, which gives its final guidance on how the monies can be spent and how those reporting guidelines are to be structured. Next month, we are planning to present a draft proposal of the ARPA plan for your review. In April, the board would adopt the ARPA plan. In June, the village will receive its second allocation. And then by the end of 2024, the funds have to be obligated to certain projects and the money has to be spent by December of 2026. So since we last met, the U.S. Treasury released its final rule. This increased the guidelines on eligible uses, provided broader flexibility in reporting and greater simplicity in reporting as well. We hosted a community listening session where residents were able to provide feedback to the village, as well as we reached out and provided an opportunity for residents to reach out via social media, submit their ideas. We talked to village staff and the village board on kind of their thoughts. In regards to the stakeholder feedback, the public feedback focused on these four main areas. There's a lot of discussion both at the community listening session and emails I have received regarding the library expansion and upgrades. Via Facebook, there's a lot of talk about water and sewer infrastructure. Most of this admittedly revolved around repealing the water rate increase, but there were other ideas as well. There's 2 comments on public safety aspects and 3 regarding road infrastructure. In terms of feedback from staff, you'll see what staff has provided as ideas for the use of these funds, including 4th of July celebration, trail developments, election equipment, office reconfiguration, as well as library upgrades. So kind of looking at the overall structure of the ARPA allocations and taking into account the different feedback we've received from different groups, we are looking at focusing the ARPA funds in different packages. So we could have a public safety package, a culture and recreation package, et cetera, around these 6 topics. For example, if we did public safety, we could use those funds to hire additional police officers or firefighters and structure them like a COPS grant, where it's fully funded by ARPA the first year, 75% the next year, and so on and so forth, as a way to keep those officers or firefighters in the village and structure it so small levy increases can support that. In addition, you could also have new or upgraded equipment. For culture and recreation, we're looking at library upgrades, whether it be expansion or outside services, repair existing trails and parks, as well as developing new trails throughout the village. In terms of business and economic development, ideas that have been floated are a revolving loan fund, business grants, and allocating some money to the Tourism Commission for their expenses. In terms of personnel, some eligible options are COVID premium pay and sick leave. I think this has been discussed in the past and just want to mention that here. Looking at technology, if there are different areas of technology we feel warrant ARPA funds, most notably the Pro Phoenix at the police and fire is due for an upgrade in 2022 and allocating some funds to that. And then looking at water and sewer infrastructure, expanding different types of transmission and distribution, facilities to improve drinking water, road building and maintenance if we wish to allocate funds for roads, and then stormwater infrastructure is also eligible under the ARPA funds. And with that, there's a picture of Theo there. His first birthday was a few weeks ago. Looking for feedback from the village board based on what they've seen so far. If there's anything we're forgetting, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. just kind of looking for some guidance from the board on maybe some priority areas or if we're forgetting anything.
Trustee Nightrider.
One of the things I thought was mentioned at a previous meeting regarding these was that the items that would be funded by it should be one-time expenses so that it's not something, say a personnel, additional personnel, whatever, which would be continuous in your budget. You were supposed to look more at a one-time expense. Is that still the norm that you're aware of?
Yes, ARPA funds are best suited for one-time projects. Looking at the personnel, that is why we would structure it like a COPS grant, where you can build small levy increases over multiple years, where the levy impact won't be as hard, where you could fund the early years heavily on ARPA and then slowly shift them over to the levy as one option. But one-time expenditures are still the best use of those funds.
Thank you, Matthew.
Trustee Hudson.
I have 3 questions. You said that they loosened up the funds for what you can use the money for. I assume not far enough for land acquisition.
No, not for some communities, land acquisition would be an eligible use, but we don't fall under those demographics where would qualify.
Fair enough. Funding for the new public works building, which is going to be a huge expense for our community.
Yep, that would be an eligible use.
Okay. And then lastly, there are parks that have a problem with cars driving on our paths. Are we allowed to use the funds to put lockable ballards or gates to keep vehicles out of our parks?
Yes, that would be an eligible use.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Trustee Pieper.
What would be considered an eligible purchase for land that,
So you would have to qualify as a disproportionately impacted community based on demographics such as income and other factors that Germantown does not meet the standards. It's most easily recognized as a DLQ based on the U.S. Census.
I thought there was some sort of clause that land can be purchased if it was used for future site, such as the public works building.
Land could be purchased for workforce housing, or I don't know if workforce housing is the term they use in the ARPA plan, but for that
Is
type
that
of.
the only thing land can be purchased for? Or are there any other
So
clauses that?
Yes, you can use land for other or purchase land for other things, but Germantown would not qualify for those uses. In theory, if we were part of a DLQ, we could purchase land for parks, but we don't fall under that in that census track. Yeah, I think so. That's not the terms they use in the Treasury report.
That's a local term. Mm-hmm.
Then yes, if they're yes.
And although I don't believe the county is using it for land purchases, I think their plan to support next generation housing does not include land purchases. It's more different types of loans that could be implemented.
I have a question. I thought I'd seen on one of your slides a revolving loan fund, but the criteria was it had to be spent by 2024 after it's been designated. How can that occur if you're dealing or placing it into some sort of revolving loan fund?
We could create a revolving loan fund using somebody like EDWC to administer it. And if the money were moved from the village of Germantown to an entity like EDWC, that would meet the qualifications or the definitions of the federal government of an obligation and an expenditure.
And it has to be within the confines of whatever structure the EDWC is whatever its charter is. And it isn't something that we could put into one of our own committees? Or create one of our own committees under the same charter?
That's something we could explore. The mechanics of it, that we hadn't gone any further. I hadn't gone any further than exploring that as a possibility with EDWC. But it might be possible to create another entity, or to partner with a different entity that more along the lines of met our goals and objectives. Also, just from the conversations I had with Christian Cheslak about this as a concept, I think it wouldn't necessarily be combining our ARPA funds with their pool of funds and their revolving loan fund. It would be creating a separate revolving loan fund that was based on the Village of Germantown's structure and criteria, priorities and criteria that they would administer.
Okay. And part of the reason for my question, and back in a number of years in Germantown's history, there was not a similar payout, but there was a fair amount of money that was available. And it came about through the court action of what is known as the sewer wars. And that payout was then decided amongst the board of that time to give it back to the residents. So it was broken down into certain amounts based on how much property you owned, or whatever your sewer and water rates were, and it was dispersed in that manner. But there was a contention at that time where they thought we should have kept it in a reserve fund for ourselves as a bank for future infrastructure costs, and to kind of create that possibility of where you're borrowing and paying back to yourself, rather than always having to deal with other entities or bonding, or adding to the levy based on whatever your borrowing structure is. And I don't know if this would qualify for that, but it seems that there's already a slew of opportunities of where we could place this money. But I know that that was one opportunity years ago that was possibly looked at, but was chosen to go in another direction. And some of that has come back to bite us a little bit in regards to covering infrastructure costs and covering operational costs, for sewer and water rates. And we probably could have maintained them a little closer, tighter, if we would have been our own bank for our infrastructure expenditures. That's just something to think about. But any further questions or comments? Next month is the meeting to decide, correct?
Yes, we're planning to bring this back in March with a set of recommendations. I guess the way that we've been approaching this and preparing this for the village board is to prepare something more along the lines of like a menu. And you could think about the staff recommendations as being the special of the day. But if you, as a board, would prefer to prepare a meal a la carte, you have the menu in front of you. So, as staff will work on what that looks like and have a set of recommendations. But we tried to solicit as much input as we could from a variety of different sources. And, at the end of the day, it's the village residents through the village board that, we want to hear what your thoughts are and where you want that money spent.
Well, we have to also structure a schedule based on the two payments. Or are we looking at it just one total and then how it's paid out past that?
I don't think that there's anything that's on this list where cash flow would be an issue. The second payment is expected in
June.
In June, so it's just a few months away, and I think that we would be able to we'd be able to cover any cash flow issues that would come up with the options that we've listed.
All right. Does it seem odd to anyone that we got paid in June, but we didn't know what to do with it until February?
No, it's government money. We expect.
No, I don't look at it.
So do we consider them the February final rule, the final rule?
Correct. You have about 2 more months to operate under the interim final rule, but the final rule is more broad and encompassing than the interim final rule.
I'm going to go to Trustee Kaminsky, and then I'll go to Trustee Jan Miller after that.
I just wanted to comment, just to get on record, knowing that we're moving along pretty quickly with this, that I personally would support anything that's infrastructure related that costs taxpayers a lot of money, whether it be borrowing or not. But also to still consider the scope of what the library is trying to achieve, because that's the type of thing that will probably not see the light of day without some type of impetus such as this and some type of available funds such as this, as far as priorities go moving into the future.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Thank you. First of all, I agree with trustee Kaminsky on the library funds. And second, I guess I have three questions. Matt, what is the DLQ? DLQ? I'm sorry, I don't.
Yes, and as I've been thinking here, it's actually Qualified Census Tract, so QCT. That is just it's
QCT.
a designation by the U.S. Census Bureau for certain geography. Oh my goodness, certain areas throughout the country that meet certain demographics or income requirements.
And so it's a formula based on demographics and geographics?
Correct.
Okay, and we don't meet those standards at all.
Correct.
Okay, and then, wait, one more question. Do we, we went through this presentation rather quickly. Could you forward a copy to us?
Yes, I can.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Hudson.
March 7th or March 21st?
I believe the 21st. We can either do it that as presenting a draft plan for the board to go over and review, and then take it up again in April. If the board feels it's being rushed too much, that'd be okay.
And again, the board does have plenty of time. That's our deadline to get a plan to you. If it's something that you'd like to give more thought or consideration, that it can be, you could give us more feedback and ask us to come back with additional information in future months.
Is it possible to get it on the 7th?
I think we could look at that. And actually, one of the reasons I hesitated, we've been penciling out the agendas for March 7th and 21st, and there's a lot covered in those two meetings. And it's something that I try to balance them out as much as we can. I think it's something we could probably, if it's a preference of the board, we'll have it on the March 7th agenda.
I'd appreciate it. March 21st is, of course, spring break for parents with kids. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments or questions in regards to this unfinished business topic? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Then we'll go on to our next item, which is new business, starting with new business item A, Germantown Junior Warhawks Facility Usage Agreement.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I do have a question. What
Trustee
is-
Pieper.
What's different from the previous agreement to this agreement?
I don't believe there are any differences. And the Park and Rec Director is not here this evening to answer that specific question. But I do not believe that there are any differences.
Brian, did you look this over? Did you notice anything?
I think that question was asked at the Park and Rec meeting too, and I think you're accurate. There are literally no differences.
As I recall, it's just that the previous agreement expired and it's just a renewal of the agreement. Everything stayed the same.
Except the
That's
date.
my understanding.
So no rate changes or anything? Okay. All right,
I did reach out to the president of the junior Warhawks just to see if he was in agreement with what the village was putting forth tonight. He didn't have anything to object about, but was really concerned about what the village is doing to add more fields and the condition of the fields and everything. Are we doing anything? I know we are updating some fields, correct?
The village board did approve funding in the 2022 budget to improve Hauptstrasse Park Field, as well as I think some other improvements to the other baseball diamonds.
So are there any plans right now in regards to the fields by the Public Works buildings?
Other than just regular maintenance, no.
Okay.
Further discussion? No further discussion? No cost to this. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Next item in the new business is Resolution 09-2022, establishing the 2022 weights and measures device fee schedule.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Came up through GGF.
It did tonight, and it was approved unanimously. They're very minor changes is what Director Etzloff said.
Okay. Good. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Next item under new business is Baker Tilly Engagement Agreement for fiscal year 2021 to 2023 for the financial audit services.
Motion to approve.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. This also came up through General Government and Finance.
Yes, it did, and this is a 3-year contract. And Administrator Krecklow had mentioned that it is probably a good idea after this contract to go out for an RFP, but due to the changes in the finance area, and they did our audit last year, that it would be in our best interest to do it in for the next 3 years with them. And I tend to agree with that, with everything that's changing in the accounting department, that would make a lot of sense. We'd have the new software in place after this contract is over, and then go out for RFP with that.
So are we then backdating the contract to cover 2021 and then it covers that?
I think this is in addition to that last year, isn't it?
Actually, it's the audit of 2021. So with,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Like a budget kind of.
yeah, so the audit of 2021 takes place during 2022 and so on.
Okay, got it. Further discussion? Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed?
Village attorney says roll call.
You're right. We're spending money. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Myers.
Aye.
Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Baum. Trustee Hudson.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Nightrider.
Aye.
Trustee Pieper.
Aye.
President Walter.
Aye.
Motion.
All right. That takes care of all items under new business. That takes care of all items on tonight's agenda. Before we adjourn, just an announcement that the next regular village board meeting will be on Monday, March 7th at 7 p.m. here at the Village Hall Boardroom, and also can be accessed via WebEx. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching, and have a good night. We are adjourned.
What am I
Microphones.
gonna do with all this time tonight?